All right, let's talk about something that I think drives a lot of us crazy. You ever notice how you can talk for hours about something, but then you try to remember a page you literally just read, and poof, it's gone? Well, it turns out you're not alone, and it's not a bug in your brain, it's actually a feature. I mean, it feels like a total paradox, right? On one hand, you've got this effortless, flowing conversation, and on the other, information just slips right through your fingers like sand. But the answer here isn't about how smart you are. Nope, it's all about survival and how your brain is brilliantly, and I mean brilliantly, wired to keep you alive in the here and now. So, first things first, let's talk about speaking. To your brain, this is not just, chatting. It's a high priority, real-time survival skill. It gets the full red carpet VIP treatment. It's an active, totally automatic process. The famous linguist Noam Chomsky really gave us a huge piece of this puzzle with his idea of generative grammar. See, you're not a parrot, you're not just replaying sentences you've heard before. Think of your brain as this incredible, dynamic sentence-building factory. It's taking all the raw materials, words, rules, and just constructing new thoughts completely on the fly. And that leads us right into this amazing concept called predictive coding. Your brain isn't like looking backward through some dusty old file cabinet to find the next word. No way. It's basically a fortune teller. It's constantly predicting what you're about to say and getting your mouth ready to say it. That makes speaking a forward-thinking, proactive event, not a memory recall task. And this all ties into the last piece of the puzzle for speaking. It's what's called a procedural memory. It's in the same category as riding a bike or tying your shoes. It's handled by a part of your brain called the basal ganglia, which is basically the hub for all your automated habits. You don't have to consciously think, okay, now form this word. You just talk. It's automatic. Okay, so now let's flip the script and talk about reading, because for your brain, this is a completely different story. If speaking is a live-action blockbuster, reading is often treated more like, sorting through old files in a quiet archive. It's a passive, archival task. And this is because, honestly, just letting your eyes scan a page means almost nothing to your brain. There's this idea called the levels of processing theory, and it basically says that memory isn't an on or off switch. It's more like a dimmer switch. Whether you remember something depends entirely on how deeply you actually engage with it. And here's what that looks like in practice. Shallow processing, that's just recognizing the shapes of letters, maybe the sounds of the words. It's totally passive, and your brain just tosses it out pretty quickly. But deep processing, that's when you have to wrestle with the meaning, ask questions, and connect the dots to what you already know. That's the kind of work that actually leaves a mark.
And I mean this literally. To create a long-term memory, your brain has to physically change. It has to synthesize proteins, build new connections. It's like your brain has to physically build a brand new shelf in its library just to store that one piece of information. And most of the time, when you're just passively reading, your brain looks at the situation, sees it as pretty low stakes, and decides, you know what, not worth the biological construction cost.
So, why? Why this huge difference in how the brain treats speaking and reading? Well, it all comes down to one powerful overriding principle that governs literally everything your brain does. It's relentless, almost obsessive pursuit of efficiency. I mean, just look at these numbers. They're pretty staggering when you think about it. Your brain is only about 2% of your body weight, but it gobbles up a whopping 20% of your daily energy. It is an incredible energy hog. And because it's so expensive to run, it has to be brutally selective about where it spends its power. This brings us to the core of what's called cognitive economics. I want you to think of your brain as a super frugal CEO. It's got a very limited budget, and it has to make ruthless decisions about spending. It will always prioritize tasks that are mission critical for your immediate survival over something that, might be useful someday in the future. And this table just lays it all out perfectly. Speaking, that's an active output. It's a high priority survival skill, so it gets full power. Reading, that's usually a passive input. The brain sees it as a low priority task for some potential future use. So what does it do? It runs it in energy saver mode. Okay, so now for the big payoff. How do we fight back? How can we send a clear, unmissable signal to our energy miser brain that the stuff we're reading is absolutely worth the cost of building a memory? Well, the answer is to turn passive reading into active learning. But first, you have to be aware of this really sneaky trap. It's called the illusion of competence. This is that comfortable feeling you get when you're reading and you're nodding along, thinking, yeah, this makes sense. I get it. But here's the thing. That's just recognition. It's not retention. Your brain is basically tricking you into thinking you've learned something when you actually haven't. The antidote to this is so simple, but it is incredibly powerful. It's called retrieval practice. Here's how it works. You read a section of something. Then you close the book or look away from the screen. And step 3, you force yourself to actively pull the main ideas out of your own head. You just ask yourself, okay, what were the most important points there? That simple act changes absolutely everything. And that moment of struggle, that little bit of mental effort where you're trying to recall the information, that is not a sign that you're failing. That is the learning process. That pain of squeezing the information out of your brain is the exact signal that tells it, hey, pay attention. This is important. Fire up the construction crews and build a permanent memory for this. So the big takeaway from all of this is way more than just a new study tip. It's about a fundamental shift in how you should think about your brain and what it's actually for. Because your brain is not a warehouse. It was never designed to be this passive storage unit, like a hard drive, for patiently stacking up endless facts and figures. That is a deeply flawed metaphor for this incredible organ we all have. Its real purpose is so much more dynamic, so much more interesting. The brain is, at its core, a prediction machine. Its number one job every single second of every single day is to use what it knows to simulate the immediate future, to make the best possible guess about what's coming next. And why does it do this? To keep you alive. And understanding that one single principle, well, that's the master key to learning how to learn.